The year is 922 AD, and an ambassador is in for a wild ride. But let's fast forward just a little. The year is 1876, and Eaters of the Dead is penned and released. But let's fast forward just a little. It's 1999. Disney is making a motion picture that costs roughly $160 million and brings in $61.7 million at the box office. This is the story of Antonio Banderas and his journey as the 13th Warrior. So you better learn a new language in 3 days because you're listening to a kind of garbage podcast, movie edition.
It's a kind of...
This week, we got to watch a movie that a very special person picked out for us. This person's name is Martin Bruda, and he is live with us right now. Martin, say hello.
Hello, everybody. How is everybody on the podcast?
I am good. I am Adam. I'm going to introduce myself as well because we never do. Cody?
I'm Cody, and I'm doing great.
Let's get right into it. We all watched The 13th Warrior. Martin, this was your pick. I want you to take the lead and tell us what this movie is about.
Well, The 13th Warrior is a weird movie for me. I came across this film completely by accident because I have relatives in Poland, and I asked them to send me a Star Wars poster in Polish so I could put it on my wall. It happened to be the Phantom Menace. I'm not proud of that. But in the package, they also sent the 13th Warrior movie poster in Polish. And I was like, what is this? I've never heard of this movie before. It's got Antonio Banderas, the world's sexiest man. I got to see this film. So I went on a quest to find this movie. And this is a little bit like Amazon was around-ish, eBay was around-ish, kind of. This is kind of pre-internet-ish, right? Like I remember handwriting the letter to my cousin. So it was a little harder to track down on DVD, but when I finally watched it, I was amazed. I was just, this is great. This is fantastic. This is swords and Vikings and horses and bear clans and fights. And I thought it was great. That was fantastic. But then you find out a little bit about the history of the production of this, and you're like, how did this even get made?
It's bizarre because I have such a vague memory of, I've never seen this movie until today, but I have a vague memory of knowing about it. And it's funny because nobody talks about this movie. This movie isn't mentioned on any you have to see this movie. The only kind of list that this movie would appear on is the box office bomb list, which this opened at, I think it was number 2 at the box office for its opening weekend against The Sixth Sense, as Cody and I found out today. And it did not make its money back. And I don't know, I think this is a movie that people should be able to reclaim because the scope of it is amazing, even if the plot itself hangs on a thread.
I found out about this movie almost right when it came out for home release. And I remember being a kid with my friend, and we were going to go rent a VHS tape from the corner store. We were with his older brother, and we were saying we either wanted to rent Predator or Tremors. And his brother was like, no, you gotta check out 13th Warrior. It's such a good movie. And I knew nothing about it and watched it. And I was like, yeah, this is a pretty cool movie that I didn't even know it ever came out to theaters. I never knew it existed until I saw it at a corner store.
So yeah, like you said in your introduction, 13th Warrior came out in 1999. So again, the internet was there. I had internet at home, but it wasn't like it is today. It's from Touchstone Pictures. And like you said, based on a Michael Crichton novel. So, I mean, it's based on a Michael Crichton novel. It's got to be fantastic, right? Directed by John McTiernan, who did Die Hard, the greatest Christmas movie ever. Fight me on it. And it's one of those films that had a bit of a tumultuous production process that everybody would talk about if this happened today. This would be on Twitter. This would be on Facebook. It'd be on Screen Rant. People would be talking about it. But because it's sort of pre-internet-ish, it kind of slips under everybody's radar. And that's exactly as to what you were saying about nobody talking about it even today.
It's bizarre because I now know I've seen 3 Michael Crichton-based novel movies that I'm aware of. I've seen Jurassic Park, just like everyone. The 13th Warrior, and the other movie was a movie that Cody made me watch, which was Timeline, starring Jerry Butler and Paul Walker.
If I'm not mistaken, Timeline's a bit, or am I thinking of the other movie? Is it got a little bit of sword and sorcery stuff in Timeline?
No sorcery, but definitely sword. Yeah, they go back to I don't even Cody. What time period was
It
that?
was the 100 Years' War between the French and the English.
Was
There
Gerard
we go.
Butler in that one? No, he was in a different
Yeah.
time track. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was. Okay,
yeah.
okay. So I'm remembering the movie correctly. So yeah, I mean, originally this film was an $80 million budget, which is pretty huge for a movie at that time. They say that it went over budget quite a bit, and the estimate is $100 million pre-advertising, pre-promotion, and that's where you get to that 160 million that you said in the intro. So the actual film cost itself to produce was 20 million over budget, and then advertising and Burger King cups and whatever else they happen to have for this flick. It went a year over production because they did an original cut of it and they screened it to a test audience. The test audience didn't like it. So apparently Michael Crichton himself went back and directed a whole bunch of reshoots and stuff. And again, if a movie gets reshot and has all these reshoots, everybody's gossiping about it these days. Everybody's talking, oh, the movie's got to be crap because they're reshooting this and they're reshooting that. You don't get that back in 1999. This kind of happened in silence unless you were reading Variety newspaper or something.
Yeah, when movies failed back then, it was kind of like every movie that came out was expected to be, if it had a budget that size, it was expected to be big. The only, it kind of reminds me of the Gina Davis the pirate movie. What was it called? Cutthroat Island?
Cutthroat Island, yeah.
Yeah, where there's no reason that wasn't a hit. It just came out and everyone, after its opening weekend, everyone kind of went, oh, there's no way this is making its money back.
I know myself when I saw the trailers for Cutthroat Island, I hate pirates. I hate pirate movies, and it stems from being a little kid asking for the Siege board game, which was a medieval board game action type thing. My mom got me Siege, the pirates version, so ever since then, I hated pirates, except for Pirates and Pirates
I
2.
was just going to say, Adam, for a man who hates movies about pirates, aren't your favorite movies pirates?
But yeah, I mean, it's there wasn't. It's kind of tough because I'm an old fart, so I remember back in the day. I found out about Star Wars from a newspaper clipping, and I accidentally thought it was the Battlestar Galactica movie. I went and saw it totally by accident. You don't have the hype machine that you do with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of stuff. So, like Cody said, the movie comes out. If it doesn't make an immediate splash, they move on to the next one. And of course, movies find a second life on video.
Whenever I've read anything about this movie now, it makes me think of Waterworld and the fact that it's like, oh, it was a box office bomb. It didn't make any money, but Waterworld made money. Waterworld made money at the theaters and then had an even bigger life on VHS, on, was it Movies on Demand, whatever it was, like the Movie Network, pay-per-view, like that. But yeah, this one, no.
Well, I'm surprised because I spend a little bit of time looking for a Rob Lowe movie called Youngblood. It's a hockey movie, and it has Keanu Reeves in it and stuff. I can't find it anywhere to stream. There's a French version that's been dubbed into French on YouTube. There's no English version. It's listed on Google Play, but you can't buy it. It's listed on Amazon, but it says unavailable. There is a Blu-ray release that's super expensive compared to how much I wanted to pay for this movie. I think it's like $40 or whatever before shipping and stuff. But 13th Warrior, I found it on everything. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Google Play. I had no problems downloading a copy of it because I was too lazy to walk over to my shelf and pick up the DVD and put it in my Xbox. The movie grossed $94 million worldwide in theaters. I don't know. I don't have any kind of numbers on what the DVD sales are like or anything like that, whether it made back the rest of its money. But I mean, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was like $9.99 on Google Play.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah. Is that like $4K?
$5 no, not $4K. $5 to rent and $9 to buy. So I mean, they're still pushing it out there.
Whenever I see the poster for this, all the first movie that jumps out to me as well is Tom Cruise, The Last Samurai, which I think this movie has lots of parallels with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But when did The Last Samurai come out?
Oh,
Oh, I would say like 2000. No, is that
Yeah,
2002?
I'll
so
look
it's
it up.
later, right? 2003.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the other thing that this immediately cries out to me, anyways, is we got to release the Tiernan cut.
Yeah.
Like if Michael Crichton went in and did reshoots and stuff, and Zack Snyder gets a Snyder cut of Justice League, I think we deserve a Tiernan cut of 13th Warrior.
I would watch that to see how badly the screener did before getting reshoots. I'd be interested in
It
that.
says it said there's 127-minute long original cut that is finished. It just Disney has no intention of releasing it.
Goddamn Disney.
See, I've always thought it'd be incredibly fascinating to give the same script to two totally different production companies, two totally different directors, different actors, and see what comes out at the other end, and actually watch the two movies, and see the difference. But I mean, who's going to waste the money on that kind of a production to go ahead and do that? But you kind of get that when you get these original cuts. So yeah, I'm gonna start a Twitter thing, a hashtag release the Tiernan cut of 13th Warrior. Let's get this going.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Can we assume that John Tyrion is dead?
No,
I mean,
he's still around.
He's still around? Good
I
for
mean,
him.
after all, it says it's an exhilarating adventure thriller from Entertainment Weekly.
What are they called? Like twin movies? It's like Armageddon or not Armageddon. What's it called? Armageddon and Deep Impact and Volcano and whatever the other Dante's Peak.
Yeah, the copycat movies.
Yeah, this kind of feels like it does have that feeling of like I've seen this movie before, probably more well done, but it's a different version of a movie that everyone's seen.
The reason why that is because basically Michael Crichton ripped off ripped off is a strong word. I apologize. Was influenced and homaged Beowulf, the story of Beowulf.
Oh, I love Beowulf. I've only ever seen one Beowulf movie, and it's definitely the Lambert one.
Like this is basically the Beowulf story,
Yeah.
So it's pretty common story that you've seen over and over again. But I don't know. I thought I liked it. I mean, there's a ton of problems. Like I wrote down a whole bunch of WTF moments in the film, and I'm sure we can touch on those. But it's still overall, it's a fun little action romp little thing, and I like it.
So,
you know who doesn't like it? Roger Ebert.
Fuck him. Wait, is he the dead one?
Yeah.
Roger Ebert reviewed it, and he said it was a pointless, plotless special effects demo reel.
I think special effects, that's a strong term for how many special effects were in this movie.
Well, it was 1999, so there's definitely not a lot of CG, but there's some good fight scenes and battle scenes and stuff like that. So I think that's what he meant from back then.
I think Cody spotted the only CG moment in the movie, because I didn't spot any, and it was when they composited the big baddie, the double horn guy.
Well, the boat scenes were all CG, but there's a really awkward composite shot of the background is like the battle that's going on with the fire and the one at nighttime. And then it's just like superimposed over top of it is the guy with the bear head and the horns screaming. And it looks so bad.
It looks worse than any weather person's chronicky at Czech's TV news broadcast.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember what scene you're talking about. He's like sitting there looking into. I can't remember whether he was looking into Antonio's eyes or he was looking into the chieftain's eyes. But he was like, "Oh, I'm going to get you next time. Oh, I'm going to come down and burn down more."
Yeah, it's weird that some of the special, like that didn't really need to be a special effect, but looking at the actual practical effects and set pieces and everything in this movie, it's so well done. Like the horse work, the sword fighting, that awesome Viking village that they have built, the cave, like everything looks amazing.
That to me, that screams reshoot then. It screams that scene was reshot, and they burned down the spoilers. They burned down the village so they couldn't, refilm that scene. So to me, it screams like that was one of the reshot scenes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the movie itself is about a Arabian poet. He's a poet, right?
Yep.
Who falls in love with the wrong girl at court, and ends up getting exiled as an ambassador to the far north. So he goes on this quest to be an ambassador, and he runs into the Tartars. He runs into the pre-Franks and all that stuff. My history is a little sketchy of the 900 AD period, so I can't remember the exact tribes. And then he finally comes across, the Vikings, and that's where the movie kind of begins, is when he comes across these Vikings, and he decides to ambassador with Vikings. It doesn't turn out all that well.
As he's being the ambassador, like you said, he goes, I don't know if I just couldn't grasp what was going on at the beginning of this movie, because I didn't know at the start that he was exiled. I thought that was like a scene from the middle of the movie when he was on the boat, that it was like him telling the story of what was about to happen. I didn't even know that was like, this is like the prelude to why he's out here. That totally went right over my head.
Oh no, like that's my first question is, why open on the boat scene? Because the Viking boat scene at the very beginning is indeed the boat journey that they do later on in the movie. It was one of those, oh, look how miserable I am. I'm about to barf, and I'm seasick, and there's these smelly Vikings everywhere, and there's a big, huge wave going to collapse us. But things were not always this bad. And then it cuts to Arabia, where they explain, how he got kicked out of the court and stuff like this. I'm like, why would you, like, it just seems like a strange film beat to put that comedic, but it wasn't always this bad, in an adventure movie.
Well, that's how they started Thor Ragnarok, right? It's like, you might be wondering how I got like this.
But Thor Ragnarok's a comedy. You expect it to be a funny thing, right? This is an action adventure, sword and guts and blood everywhere movie. I just thought it was
It's true.
I just thought it was a weird reach. I don't see diehard John Tiernan putting that in the movie.
One of my questions to Cody while we were watching this was, I guess like the prince or like the new king was sitting there talking, and then one of the other Vikings told his partner guy, what's the actor's name?
Omar Sharif.
Yes, he was telling Omar Sharif what's happening. Then Omar Sharif is telling Antonio what's happening, and I'm like, wait a second, are there 3 different languages happening right now? Is like the king talking one language, and then the translator's telling Omar it in a different language, and then he's translating it to Antonio?
There is indeed, and that's my second point in here. So basically, Omar Sharif is the older statesman who is accompanying Antonio Banderas on his ambassador quest, and they come across these Vikings, and they want to start talking to the Vikings. So they spoke in some language, probably Farsi. Nothing happens. So Antonio nudges Omar, says, "Try Greek." So he starts talking Greek to one of my favorite Vikings, and this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but he bumps into the blonde Viking, the blonde Viking, and says, this guy's talking a funny language. So that guy gets up. I wish I remembered everybody's names, but I just can't. And he starts talking to Omar Sharif after listening to him speaking in Greek. He starts speaking back in Latin. So Omar Sharif is speaking in Greek to the Viking. The Viking is translating whatever Viking Nordic talk, a language that they're speaking, back to Omar Sharif in Latin. And at no point in time does Omar Sharif start speaking Latin to the guy. He just keeps firing off in Greek. The Viking keeps firing back in Latin, and I'm like, what? Like...
You are being introduced to one of the heirs apparent, Boulevard.
And that gets translated into English.
So here's this Viking who snots into a wash basin, who can speak Greek, Latin, and whichever language it is that the Vikings spoke. Like, how did this guy get so educated? Like, what is this? I mean, that's a story in and of itself. There's the sequel. How did this guy get educated?
Did that guy stay alive by the end of the movie?
Yeah. I think he was one of the ones that survived.
Okay, because half these guys look the same, and it's kind of hard to tell them apart.
Yeah. I should really pull up IMDb here so I can get their names. But there's quite a few actors here that they filmed one movie in English, and this was it, right? So it's kind of tough to figure out who's who, because there's a lot of folks in here that you've never seen again. But there's a few familiar faces. What's his name? Tony Curran. He's from Scotland. He was the Viking with the Scottish accent that you recognize from like Sons of Anarchy and stuff. So he was in it and stuff. I think that's the king.
A lot of the side guys, I'm looking it up, they all show up later on in that TV series Vikings, which isn't a far stretch.
Yeah, so obviously they filmed in somewhere out there in Denmark or Norway or wherever it was they filmed, and got some local actors to fill in that just aren't popular in Hollywood.
Oh, this movie was filmed in the heart of Vancouver.
This movie was filmed in the BC interior.
Yeah, parts of it, but they did do some on-site stuff.
I'm sure some of it was filmed in other places, but I know, like, as far as all the stuff in the woods, that's totally BC.
That was the Boreal Forest. Is that accurate geolocation?
The outside exterior location for absolutely everything that ever happened on X-Files.
And Hercules and Xena.
Was X-Files filmed in BC?
Vancouver, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Filmed in Vancouver.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't hear that big story about how David Duchovny complained that it always rained in Seattle and he wanted to be closer to his family and he wanted to film in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's a bit bonkers. So at this ambassadorship thing where they're talking in the tent with all the Vikings, I guess the king of this particular village of Vikings had died recently. So the chieftain is the son of this king. So just randomly while talking, some rival decides to go for the crown and tries to kill this guy, the chieftain, right there at the table. So you're sitting there and Antonio's telling his little story, and there's Greek, there's Latin, and all of a sudden, guy jumps up, pulls out his sword, there's a beheading.
He sliced him right through the chest as well, and the chest kind of like snaps open, almost like a chest burster was coming out, and I was just like, yay, like that was amazing. Was cool. Is this what we're in for?
Yeah, like blood and guts everywhere, and so that's kind of how he gets introduced to the Vikings. They have a big, huge party. And everybody gets drunk, and everyone's passed out in the morning when Antonio wakes up with a headache, hungover. And as he's going to the main tent, he notices that a herald from another Viking boat is there. And this herald basically tells the group of adventurers that there's a evil bear, werebear, kind of werewolf, werebear type creature that is ransacking his village and killing everybody, and the chieftain of that village is asking for help.
The king apparent, the guy who kills the guy, he breaks open his chest, he kind of looks like the antagonist from Good Will Hunting, the guy with the long blonde hair.
The guy who picks a fight with him in the bar, the antagonist to Good Will Hunting.
And then the quote unquote kingdom that's under attack, like that little village, they send his son, who I pegged as Joffrey, and he's just like, help, my father King Baratheon needs you to help him, because it's this little blonde kid. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, so the Latin speaking Viking, his character's name is Herger, and the chieftain's name is Bullywolf. Buliwyf. Bullywolf. It's kind of funny that, you watch the entire movie, everybody's name just went right through went in one ear, one out the other.
Yeah, Antonio's character, the only thing I remember his name is son of, and that is it.
Yeah, that was a funny little moment when he was getting introduced, and he went through the very Arabian kind of tradition of naming all of his ancestors. So, he's Ahmed ibn Fadlan, ibn this, ibn that, ibn this, and he keeps naming all of his ancestors, son of this, son of that, son of John, son of Paul. And the one Viking calls him Ibn. So that's his nickname for the movie. But the way it becomes 13 Warriors is they call upon I don't know, what do you call it, a witch, fortune teller, whatever Viking nomenclature there is for the wise old woman who has the bones. She spills a bunch of bones out of a bowl, and there's 13 bones.
It was not a bowl. This is a very specific item.
It's a turtle shell. like a hollowed out turtle.
So she spills the bones, and there's 12 white bones and one black bone, signifying 12 Vikings, right? White, Nordic, blonde, and one darker bone, which would be the Arabian fellow from the Mediterranean with the darker skin. So obviously, when they pick, everybody who's like volunteering to go on this, the 12 Vikings all volunteer one at a time. Everyone's like, "Aah!" And then when it's time to the 13th warrior to volunteer, everyone's looking at Antonio, and Antonio's going, "What? What are you talking about? I'm a poet. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover."
Can we also mention that the witch lady has like a slave boy with her who looks like almost spot on as young Conan from Conan the Barbarian?
Yeah, he did.
And of course, just before this, they're all hungover. So somebody passes around. This was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, because this is completely historically inaccurate. A wash basin bowl that all the Vikings wash up in after their drunken stuff, and people are snotting in it, people are drinking it and mouth washing in it and spitting it back in the bowl, and it just gives this impression that Vikings were dirty, when in fact Vikings were very, very, very meticulous about their appearance and stuff. They've got all sorts of combs and all sorts of other kind of accoutrements that they have found in Viking historical digs and stuff, where it's just not true that Vikings were dirty.
Yeah, that was so gross, where I was waiting for the moment where Antonio like takes it and he's like, fuck that, and he passes it, and I wanted them to be offended and be like, no, you fucking drink my snot right now.
Now that's a bit of a theme throughout the whole movie, is how Vikings are dirty. Like, it was the bowl was dirty. Later on, again, spoilers, Antonio gets a little bit of a cut, and the girl is applying, what was it, boiled down cow's urine, and he was all offended, and he wanted clean water instead. And it's like this trend, this entire underlying theme of the two cultures of Arabia and the Vikings kind of clashing together until they eventually, learn to love each other, so to speak.
My favorite part of the cow urine scene was when she touches his face and he goes, and she goes, those are the sounds a women makes.
So yeah, apparently these bear creatures are terrorizing the villains of villages, and they appear to be cannibals. So that sets off the quest, and everybody hops on the boat, and we get back to the original opening scene of everybody vomiting. Well, Antonio vomiting off the Viking warship going through the ocean.
My favorite part of that scene is, I mentioned to Cody, a guy comes over, it's like, here, you need to eat, and he hands him this bowl on a rocking ship in the middle of a storm, and it burns Antonio's hands. And I'm like, he's going to spill that on his lap and just burn his dick off.
Yeah, he did mention it was hot, and I was like thinking to myself, like, what, did they like have a campfire sitting there going in the middle of the ship? Like, how did they heat up the cup of noodles that they gave him? I got confused, but
before they start actually going across the sea, we see their foot trip, which is a big plot point because Antonio cannot understand what they're saying for the first little bit of the movie.
Yeah, I got, was that before they went off on the boat, or was that after they landed?
It's before.
Oh, okay. Because they also had the little whole thing about Antonio's poor horse. So I don't know if you remember that there.
They say that his horse is small like a dog, and then they all start barking.
He thinks your horse is too small. Something about only an Arab would bring a dog to war.
Yeah, so he's obviously riding an Arabian stallion, which is, small, light, and fast, and they're probably, I don't know what horses were in Norway. I know it's not a Clydesdale, but it'd be a big, huge horse like that, right?
Yeah.
So there's that whole thing playing through the whole movie where Antonio's small, and the Vikings see him as small, and they see his horse as small, and later on they see his sword as small, and incapable because he's small, and he kind of shows them small doesn't mean ineffectual. Just like the Vikings are showing Antonio, we're dirty barbarians, uncivilized, and yet were really smart about tactics and all this sort of stuff, which comes up in another scene, Then, like you said, there's that whole campfire scene, which we got to talk about. That blew my mind as well.
With him being smaller, I never got the feeling that he was like shorter than them. The only time that I ever had a feeling that someone was shorter was later in the movie where one of the Viking guys is fighting the big ginger, which he like towers over him. I feel like Antonio should have felt that much smaller to the Vikings, how the Vikings look to that ginger guy.
The other part of Antonio, of course, is he's a poet courtesan. He's not a warrior. Again, more dichotomy. He's just an ambassador, poet, lover of the wrong women in the court at the Arabian whatever temple castle. He's not a warrior in any way, shape, or form. So these guys are going to be physically, if they're not taller, they're definitely going to be more muscular. They're going to be leaner. They're going to look like warriors as opposed to this, pampered, poofy guy who probably smells of perfume and stuff. So we got to talk about the campfire.
Yeah, so Eben is now separated from his partner, so he doesn't have anyone to translate any of the Viking languages to him. So we have this scene, which is kind of a montage, but it gets a little confusing because it keeps cutting from one campfire at night to the next campfire at night. So it's kind of hard to pick up that time is actually progressing.
Yeah, like the first time I saw it, I thought it was all in one night. But then my daughter kind of points out, she's like, no, Dad, I mean, it took a while to travel from wherever that village is by boat to another village and then by horse and stuff. And she reminded me that it'd probably take you 3 days by foot to get to Toronto from Peterborough. So this is obviously a couple of weeks of time that has gone by.
Yeah, he's watching them all like drink and rest and eat around a fire. And then slowly, as the montage goes on, certain words start to be translated to English, which is English is like, I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's kind of like, it's not really English. It's just, that's how Eben's hearing the words for him to understand it. So more and more words and more phrases start to get translated for him. And then by the end of the montage, I'm trying to remember what it is. One of them makes a joke about a woman.
They make a joke about Antonio's mother.
Yes.
Because, again, he's small, weak, and stuff. They made a joke that his mom was weak and had problems in childbearing or something like that to reflect the fact that he's small, tiny, demure, and weak. So they call her, I don't know if they called her a whore or a prostitute or what. It gets translated, so he automatically knows exactly what he says, and he kind of jumps out. He says, my mother was a pure woman or something like that. Or
yeah, it's kind of neat because, like, you can see him, because he hasn't been talking to them, you can see him looking around, kind of checking the other Vikings to make sure that the words he's using are the correct words. And he's like, my mother was a noble woman who was like a good woman, and my father was whatever. And then he says, you don't even know your father and your mother was a dog? Like, he starts insulting them, but he doesn't know if the words he's using are the correct, like, insulting words.
Pure woman. From a noble family. And I, at least, know who my father is. You. Pig-eating son of a whore.
It's like the original getting a Japanese tattoo and not really being sure 100% whether it translates correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, of course, they freak out that he now knows the language, and they're like, how did you learn our tongue? Why weren't you using it the whole time? Are you some kind of conniving spy? What's going on? He just looks at him and goes, I listened! And that was it. That was all the argument they needed. That was an explanation on how he miraculously learned how to speak Viking, and everything's good.
The guy that asked them, how can you speak our language? Once he tells him I listen, that guy just laughs and then walks away. Like, he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is Herger, who miraculously knows Greek as well as Latin. So maybe he knows exactly how easy it is to pick up a language around a campfire. And he thought, yeah, sure. I did it. Why can't Antonio do it? Of course.
Where did you learn our language? I listened.
Can we talk about how everybody in this movie looks like a Nord character from the Skyrim series? Like, I know while we were watching it, I even said, like, this looks like Skyrim the movie. The setting is there, the strongholds, just the land and the scope of it. You sit there thinking, man, this movie is like 15 years before its time, where you could have had a great action movie. This could have been as epic as In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege tale, directed by Uwe Boll.
Yeah. At this point in the movie, he's now on the boat, so we're caught up to the opening scene of the movie, so we know where he is. And when they make land, like what Adam said, like this movie almost looks identical to the game Skyrim. Their version of like Viking culture and everything, like every character now looks like a Skyrim character. The longhouses look like Skyrim castles.
My favorite part about them finally hitting land was they get they call him a messenger boy. They call him a messenger boy. It's an old man, and he is the spitting image of John Carpenter holding up a House Slytherin banner. Like, I'm like, what's John Carpenter doing there? Just this guy with like a white like handlebar mustache and white hair with a snake banner. I'm like, oh, he's House Slytherin. Of course he is.
An old man, and they're like, look at that messenger boy.
Now, again, twice in the movie, they make reference to the horse being a dog. And I have my timelines ever so slightly mixed up. I can't remember whether the horse jumping scene was before they got on the ship or after they got off the ship. Because they did mention the horse was a dog at the very beginning as well. So I guess Antonio was a little. I think it's after because he's speaking their tongue at the time because he can understand them. So I guess he's a little sick and tired of them picking on his his mother, and picking on his poor little horse. So they call the horse a dog, and he goes, "Oh, really? Well, can your giant stupid horse do this?" And he kind of gallops away and jumps over a wagon and jumps over a fence and then jumps over an actual Viking and the Viking's horse, knocking him to the ground. And everybody laughs and says, "Ah ha ha ha." The dog can jump or something like that.
He had his own private Westminster dog show for them, where the horse ran the course and jumped over stuff.
And this kind of foreshadows a big scene later on in the movie involving horse jumping that we'll get into. But I just thought it was kind of funny that it was established the way it was just to pay off 13-second action bit half hour later, 45 minutes later. Just weird stuff like this throughout the whole movie. It just keeps happening, right?
Well, I have a feeling a lot of this was supposed to play off. I kind of have a couple notes that I made of what I think was cut from the movie. And it's around this time in the movie, too, that once they know each other's language, the main Viking asks Antonio Banderas if he knows how to write sound and how to read it, which is like, he's basically asking him if he's literate. And then it's brought up once or twice more, but I have a feeling stuff with that, the horse, and then the old king's son, it was supposed to play off later on in the movie. I think there was supposed to be an action beat in this movie where they have to rescue the old king, or they have to free the king. They have to free that village from the king's son, who's a bad guy.
Yeah, something's missing for sure. You're definitely onto something there.
Yeah, in my notes, I have subplot I can't seem to follow about a king and a prince. That's literally word for word what's in my notes. I'm like, there's a plot here that I can't understand.
Well, the other thing that happens is when they get to this actual village that's under siege, the chieftain, they refer to the chieftains as kings as well. He's ill. He's not doing well. And it looks like he's going to die soon. it turns out later on, spoilers, that his son is poisoning him. They have that little beat in there. And so again,
Oh,
just like
okay.
the first chieftain is, his dad has passed, and there was a little bit of a contest to see who would be the new chieftain. There is in this village as well. So the prince, the son, is kind of undermining the whole operation. He's undermining the 13 warriors. He's undermining his dad. He's doing all this stuff to try to kind of, take power. And there's a few beats there where they mock this prince for the only kind of combat he's ever done is killing his own brothers. And he gets pissed off at that. He gets a little angry. So that sets up that whole Viking versus Viking kind of arena fight that happens, which again pays off on a whole bunch of different aspects. So one of the good chieftain and Herger, they say, okay, well, we got to make an example of this prince that's trying to undermine us, and they choose the big, huge, massive, red-headed Viking to be the object of the exercise, right? And that's when Herger throws mud on him while digging trenches, and upsets him to the point where he challenges him to a death match because he got mud thrown on him.
I just want to point out too, as a fellow ginger, this massive ginger guy going to work takes off his shirt in daylight. Gingers wouldn't do that for the fear of getting sunburned. So I just want to say that is inaccurate.
Well, it is Norway. I don't know how strong the sun is out there at that point in time.
That's true.
So that sets up this whole battle where it's, again, Davy versus Goliath, this whole thing about big, huge, massive versus small and effective, and how, you can't judge a book by its cover type thing. So they have a little battle and they scrap it out. And just like a boxing match, Herger, the small guy, he's tiring out his opponent. He's, jab, jab, step back, jab, jab, step back. He's doing the Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope, and he's letting this redhead tire himself out until just the key moment when he makes a mistake, he's off balance, and shlook, his head comes off. And Antonio's upset during the entire fight, going, "Oh, this is pointless. We shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be fighting the Bear Clan. We should this is ridiculous. What are you doing? Blah blah blah." And the end result is, Herger says to Antonio, the prince was measuring us up the whole time. He was measuring our strength. He was checking our defenses to see how best to undermine us. Now that he underestimated us, it's going to be harder for him to predict what he can't see, because we did this beheading and he didn't expect it. So we're obviously godlike now because we can behead big, huge, red-headed gingers. It's again just playing to this theme of, I'm small, I'm diminutive, but don't underestimate.
A little bit before that, shortly after they get to the kingdom, they see a naked boy running with blood covering him up towards their little kingdom, to let them know, hey, the bear people, or I guess the wild bears, have attacked my tree fort that my family built. Just this little house in the middle of the woods, and we get taken there, and it's just full of dead bodies. But one of my favorite scenes, just before they go inside, is they're doing reconnaissance around the house, and they're sneaking in, and one guy's on top of it, and then grabs the top of the roof and proceeds to do a Sam Fisher Splinter Cell barrel roll through the window and just smashes it. And then another guy jumps in. We're like, what is he doing? They're trying to be stealthy, and he cannonballs through a window.
Yeah, so it's a little farmhouse outside of the village, just like any other castle and stuff. There's surrounding homes and stuff that rely on the village, but they're suburban Vikingdom, I guess. So it's just establishing the fact that up to this point, they still think they're battling some kind of a demonic beast, some kind of a supernatural creature. So they're still all worried about this supernatural creature that has unheard of, unnatural powers that's ripping and devastating and eating things. Because another beat in there is that all the heads are missing. So everybody who's dead, their head is missing. So it's oh, these guys are stealing these bear creatures are eating everybody's head.
And the bear creatures leave I guess like a wooden or rock booby trinket statue.
Yeah, it was an idol. Basically, it was a pagan
Yeah.
type idol, so that it kind of establishes that these are indeed some kind of a there is this supernatural element that's kind of trying to be introduced here, but then it gets dismissed really quickly once some of the other battles happen. Like there's this mysticism going on, this supernatural thing about these bears, and then Antonio solves the mystery, and that subplot just gets dropped.
Antonio's character in this entire movie is basically you're not a good warrior, but you can handle a sword later on when you get the blacksmith to make you one. But he is Sherlock Holmes in this
Yes.
movie, where he's just like, oh, this is what this is. That's his character. And even I'm going to jump to the end without spoiling it. He doesn't do anything in this movie other than being like, hey guys, I figured out a puzzle. That's his character. He is almost pointless for this
No,
movie.
he is 100% the CSI slash Sherlock Holmes slash detective part of this. Who, I mean, that's his forte. He's supposed to be smart and educated and stuff, right? He's not supposed to be the warrior. Which again, my one daughter watched it with me, and that heartbeat that you were talking about in the film, where all of a sudden he's like swinging a sword like a crazy hussar or something like this. It's like I thought he was a poet.
Yeah.
Like, how does he know how to do all this steeplechase stuff with the horse? And how is he such a good sword fighter when he is a poet? I'm confused.
Yeah, they after getting the idol, they go back to the stronghold. They all take a nap together. Or I guess they were fake sleeping, but one guy might have actually been sleeping. Antonio definitely
I
was.
think they were sleeping, but they got woken up like combat sleep, where combat veterans can have a nap and stuff like this, but they're really aware and it's a very light sleep. So when you hear something, they wake up. And of course,
They probably all woke up when Antonio went through.
and of course, they all have their M16s under their pillows while they're sleeping in Knob. So they're all sleeping with their swords and stuff, and that's when the very first attack against the 13 warriors happens, when the Bear Clan kind of in the middle of the night tries to kill them, and they have a big huge fight.
You think that the moment they hear a sound, they're like, oh shit, guys, we're surrounded. Let's all get up very slowly so we're not all laying prone on our backs when they break through the walls.
Yeah. So that's when they have their first battle, where Antonio has this big, huge, massive, ginormously long sword, Viking sword that he can barely lift, and it proves to be quite ineffectual. And he proves to be very ineffectual as a warrior. And like you said, he lets loose all these girly screams, and all the bear guys after the attack, they all take off and they take their dead with them, so that this what do we call it? This falsehood that they are supernatural doesn't get broken just yet.
After that, I don't want to say nothing happens, but they basically just prepare the walls. They're like, oh shit, so these guys are real, they're taking their dead, but we got a bear paw with us. And they start
Bear paw.
not like the delicious cookie bread type bear paw, but like an actual bear paw. They proceed to put like a wall with shaved off logs to make spikes
Yeah,
around.
I call this the A-Team scene.
Yes.
You guys might be a bit young to remember the A-Team, but as soon as they started building all the, like you said, the fortifications and the spike walls, and I'm just like, dun, 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 you know. And it even gets to the point where Antonio goes, "Is there a blacksmith?" I think he says a metal maker or something. And he goes to the metal maker with this giant sword. He gets it cut into a scimitar-shaped sword, right? And that's where Tony Curran, the redheaded Scottish Viking, kind of goes, "Oh, what are you going to do with that toothpick?" And Antonio kind of spins it around like some kind of a crazed martial artist, an expert swords guy. And when he's done, the redheaded guy just kind of goes, "Ha ha ha! When you die, can I give that to my daughter?"
He learned how to use that sword faster than the kids in House of the Dead learned kung fu and how to use Uzis.
He learns how to jump horses. He learns how to speak Viking. He learns there's all these. it's a fun popcorn adventure movie, so it's not a big deal. But there's all these massive plot holes. You could drive you could drive B.A. Baracus' van right through these plot holes.
I thought BA's van was coming through the windows when the bears staged their attack. Guy just explodes through a window.
We get to see the quote unquote dragon finally come because they keep on talking about like fire from the mountain or the fire snake, the fire serpent, and it's just like what I want to say thousands. It should be thousands of the bear people coming down holding torches, and there's kind of like I want to say lazy. There's like a little battle that doesn't really do much because they retreat after not that much fighting, and there's no way that the 13 warriors and then the women and children could fend off this army all at once.
Well, isn't that when they burnt the village down in the middle of the night? So after fortifying everything in the middle of the night, they start to notice this fire serpent coming down from the mountains, and it just looks like a river of fire coming down from the mountain. Which, as Adam mentioned, is just a whole bunch of warriors with torches, like thousands and thousands and thousands of these guys carrying torches coming down, and they have that battle. They do a really poor job of fortifying everything. They break through the defenses. Everything's set on fire. This is where that stage scene is that Cody was talking about. That's composed really poorly. And everything kind of burns down, and the 13 warriors are like, wow, we got our butt kicked there. So this is the big battle that destroys the village and stuff, and it's all, we find out that there's a Bear Clan leader, and there's a Bear Clan witch leader, like his concubine or whatever, queen, king, whatever words you want to attach to him. But the big reveal during this fight is Antonio gets attacked by one of these guys, and the bear mask that they wear falls off, and he sees that it's just a regular person underneath the mask. And he's like, it's a man! It's a man! It's a man!
I was sitting there thinking, well, yeah.
Like, I didn't count it, but I think he said it like 6 times. It's a man!
After the whole man thing, they need to figure out where do we go? What do we do? So they see my absolute favorite character, which we nicknamed her Lazy Oracle.
Lazy Oracle's pretty great.
Because it's like we have to go see this woman who was an old woman when my grandmother was a little girl, and they go down. I don't even know where they go to, just where the Oracle lives. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be like the Oracle from the Matrix, all happy. And it's just this woman laying on her side being like, hey, doesn't even sit up, and she's so lazy.
This Oracle explains to them how there is this Bear Clan king and the Bear Clan queen, and she says to the 13 warriors, you'll never defeat this onslaught of warriors because there's thousands of them. You won't ever defeat them until you kill the king and the queen. You kill the sorcerer. I think she calls her a witch, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Until you kill the witch and the leader. So these guys are like, okay, well, let's follow that fire trail up in the mountain because that's where they were, and let's see if we can find out where they live so we can kill the king and the queen of the bear tribe. So they head off into that direction, and they of course come across the bear village and stuff like this. And Antonio has this epiphany that they're bears. So where do you hunt bears? In bear caves. And I'm thinking, you don't hunt bears in bear caves. You wait till the bear comes out of the cave. You don't go into the cave. But they decide that that's what they're going to do, is they're going to go into the caves if there's caves. And they're like, are there any caves? Of course, yes, there is. All right, well, let's go in there.
He literally Sherlock Holmes it, being like, they're bears are in caves, beats bears, Battlestar Galactica. He is the Dwight Schrute of the 13th Warrior.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, pretty much. So, of course, then they go into the caves and they find, all the guys, and a couple of them they stealthily kill, even though they call out. I don't know why any sentries didn't figure that out. And then they fall down a waterfall in a cave, and they almost get caught, but they didn't get caught before when the guy yelled out, but they didn't get, like, it's just plot hole after plot hole in this cave. as they not so stealthy commando through it.
I was expecting them to fall into the water, and when they came up, there's One-Eye Willie's like pirate ship just sitting there because they're on a Goonies adventure in that goddamn cave.
It's One-Eyed Willie.
Oh God, that's funny. That's exactly what it seemed like. It was like the adventure with the Goonies in the cave, like, you know, falling down this obstacle and falling down this slide and down this waterfall. So they finally find the witch, and the chieftain goes in to kill her, and he does successfully kill her, but I guess she has some kind of a claw of some kind that she dipped in poison, and he ends up getting poisoned and infected. So he's a little bit weak on the way out.
The witch, when I saw her, I'm not even gonna lie, the first thing I thought was like, oh, she's pretty hot. Now, with that said, after doing a little bit of research, the woman who played the witch, Susan Willis, did pass away in 2009 at the right old age of 83.
Oh, wow.
I didn't really. She was born in 1925, and I'm like, oh, she looked fucking good with all that makeup.
There's a thing I saw on the internet, and I'm trying to pull it up, but I can't remember where it is exactly, where they say that an old woman was cast as the witch and is in the credits, but in the reshoots, she was replaced with a younger lady by Creighton. And,
that makes sense.
She's uncredited in the credits. They still credited as old one, but they just said the witch. So I'm not sure. Like, I wasn't sure whether they were talking about the witchy oracle with the turtle shell and the bones, the lazy witch, or are they talking about this witch in the cave? Like, I just didn't remember or put the two together until you started talking about it. But I think that's probably the lady we're talking about.
So she was a victim of the reshoots, the old witch that we never got to see. This is the young hot
I wonder
witch.
if I read that at the IMDb, what do they call it? The trivia section about the movie.
Once they've killed the witch, they say, we need to escape. Let's go down, guys. And they get to, I didn't hear it properly or like something just went over my head, but they were like, hey, it's gonna rain.
Oh, okay. Well, so there was a beat earlier on in the movie where my favorite Viking, the brunette, he's the hunter of the bunch. He's the stealthy tracker and everything. And at one point in time, Antonio's talking to him because he gave him some food while he was on watch, and he says, "Ooh, I think rain's coming because I hear thunder." And he was like, "Well, actually, that's not thunder, you dumb poet. That is crashing waves crashing against from the ocean, crashing against the rock cliffs, making it sound like thunder." So Antonio's like, "Oh, okay, I guess I was wrong. Thank you." And then when they're in the cave, they're trapped. They can't figure out a way out. There's a dead end, but they were following a river stream that they had swam in to a dead end in the cave. And Antonio's like, okay, I'm in the middle of this cave, about a kilometer down. I hear thunder. Oh, is that thunder? Wait, this Viking who's standing right beside me, who can probably hear better than me, doesn't hear the thunderous waves and makes the connection. So I'm going to Sherlock this shit, and I'm going to be like, hey, thunder, waves. And then the brunette Viking goes, oh yeah, that means that this stream goes out into the water. So if we follow it, we'll be in the ocean, and we will not get crushed against the rocks as the waves splash and make thunderous noises. So this is an escape route. Let's go swimming.
And that's a big leap of faith to be like, yeah, there'll be holes big enough for our bodies to swim through this cave.
Oh, the whole time that they're in the caves, I'm sitting there to my daughter, I'm like, nope. I'm at the mouth of the cave. Nope. I'm gonna go clean the old witch's nether regions for her because I'm not. There's no way you're getting me into a cave with swords and stuff. And then when they start swimming, I'm like, no, no way, no sir.
The cave does, the little, I don't know what you would call it, the little, like, river at the bottom of the cave does end up leading them back out to the ocean, or the Thunder Cliffs, or whatever they call it, and they make their way. It then cuts back to them at the Viking village. The Viking, what would you call him, like the Viking prince?
We're talking about the Beowulf character, whatever his name is, Bully Wolf.
Yeah, Bully Wolf.
I just refer to him as the chieftain to my daughter.
Yeah. So the chieftain character is now very sick, and they're all kind of quietly commenting to each other that it won't be long before he passes over until Valhalla. So Antonio Banderas goes out with one of the other Vikings, and they start talking about how it won't be long now before the bear tribe launches their final attack to like get revenge on them. So this kind of sets up the last action beat of the movie, which is the bears come back this time during the daytime, led by the main bear chieftain to try to kill them.
Yeah, they're upset that the witch got killed, so they're out for revenge.
Yeah.
So this is the most anticlimactic battle ever.
Well, this leads into like what I thought earlier. I don't think this was the final battle of the movie. I think this battle happens before they're even supposed to get to the village, or maybe there's a battle that takes place before it. But I think there's supposed to be some sort of resolution between the king's evil son.
Well, another thing that I read was that original John Tiernan cut was the one idea that the studio had was that it was missing action, that it didn't have enough blood and guts, it didn't have enough battle scenes. So I can definitely see where you're talking about, where Crichton, Michael Crichton, when he did his reshoots and stuff and his recuts, made it more of an action flick. So maybe there was something more dramatic or more, not battle, gore, blood and guts subplot that brought the movie to a different conclusion. And I think that's what you're kind of picking up on.
Yeah.
We also know that they definitely 100% deleted a sex scene with Antonio Banderas and the woman that he picks up in that kingdom.
Yeah, they kind of basically just show that he gets hit on by one of the ladies. She's the one with the cow urine, who's all worried about him. And yeah, instead of having a really awesome sex scene right there, which is in keeping with something that you'd expect from the 1990s, but it's Touchstone, it's Disney, so it had to be toned down a little bit. So you just see him waking up in the morning with her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the final fight. And, of course, Beowulf, or whatever his edited name is, the chieftain, he ends up killing the Bear Clan leader. And the second he dies, 2,000 Bear Clan warriors go, "Oh, the boss is gone. I guess we're done. Let's punch out and get a beer." And they just walk away. They just disappear. Like, there was thousands of them in the hills, all those little dots that you saw. And then all of a sudden there's this scene of the hills and all the dots kind of recede into the background as they walk away. And I'm like, come on, there's like not a second in command. There's not a drill sergeant who's like, let's go, let's do it for the captain and reinvigorate the battle or something. But no, they just kind of disappear and it's over.
I like how they're all running into battle and all the bear people are like, hold on, everybody wait, chieftain, you go first. You lead this. Nothing can go wrong if you're the first one into battle.
And then the second he falls, they're all like, okay, well, that's it. We're done. It's almost as if they were sitting in the cave going, I really don't want to do this anymore. I mean, this is all Bob's idea, and Bob's just a jerk. So let's get Bob to go running in first, and if Bob dies, let's cut out and go to the trailer and ride the four-wheelers. This is garbage. I don't want to do this anymore.
So after he dies, nothing else happens, right? Like, Beowulf, or whatever the fuck his name is, he dies, and his dog, which we did not mention at all, this dog's just like,
Well, it shows the bear people like disappear into the mist, so it kind of like goes back to the supernatural element. Like maybe there was a little something mystical about them.
Yeah, they just disappear. Like, from a logic point of view, they're still going to be hungry. They still want to eat Vikings. Like, I just don't see that being the end of it. Not to mention, the village is destroyed. The king of that village is dead. Isn't the son dead as well, who was trying to kill his dad? Isn't he dead? Like, everybody's dead except for some of the 13 warriors.
Oh, and yeah, at the end, as Antonio goes back on the boat to go back to, I guess, Baghdad, the funny Viking goes, what does he say?
He says,
Cody?
"Goodbye, Arab."
Goodbye, Arab! Goodbye, Northman.
Like, oh my god, like, I don't think you can just say goodbye and then say the race of a person. That'd be like you seeing like a Mexican person be like, but goodbye, Mexican. Like, you can't.
I think it's okay.
You can't do that in 2020, but they sure as heck did it in the 900 AD. You know, there was no like the guy was from the Arabian Peninsula, but it doesn't say whether he was from the precursor of Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, wherever in that area he's from. Egypt, they just call him Arab and not Arabian, but just kind of derogatory Arab. And I don't know. I mean, I kept looking at him, expecting someone to say Spaniard.
Yeah, yeah, really.
Now that brought up another kind of interesting point because I was discussing the movie with a friend of mine, and she kind of got upset over the fact that they had a Spaniard playing an Arabian character in 1999. And I'm like, well, first off, Hollywood wasn't very woke back then, and second, Spain, if you know your history of the Mediterranean, there's a reason why Greeks on the coast, Italians on the coast, Spaniards, Portuguese on the coast, the Turks from Turkey, the guys from Libya, Tunisia, they all look the same. There's a reason, you know. The Moors tried to take over that whole area. Alexander the Great tried to take over that area. Romans took over that area. You've got this nice little sheltered sea where there was a lot of trade and stuff like this. So from a population genetic migration point of view, there's a lot of Arabian DNA all along that whole coastline.
Yeah, are you sure it was the Moors? I think I have the Moops written down.
Yeah,
Moops.
whatever. Again, my history's a little bit flaky on that. Whatever it is, the exact tribe.
No, it's a Seinfeld reference.
Oh, okay. The Moops.
Who invaded Spain in the 8th century?
That's a joke. The Moors.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry, it's the Moops. The correct answer is the Moops.
Moops. Let me see that. That's not Moops, you jerk. It's Moors. It's a misprint.
I'm sorry, the card says Moops.
So, I mean, the fact that they had a Spaniard playing an Arabian, it didn't bother me at all. It's fine. I mean, I guess Rami Malek wasn't available, or he was still in diapers at the time.
He was great in Twilight. I can't remember which one he was in. He was really
good.
good.
Omar Sharif is an Arabian, Muslim Arabian. So he's that was spot on casting, I guess. I don't know. I just don't think it was something that they considered. At least it wasn't a white guy playing somebody from Japan.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fellow from Poland playing a native North American. At least it was culturally possible that, you know, a Spaniard would carry the same type of DNA. So that was just a little side note that I had here that I thought was funny. But yeah, so after the battle, everything's done. Everybody's happy, even though everyone's dead and the village is dead. And now it's like, okay, Antonio, back to being a poet. You're done now. Get on your boat. See ya. And he's like, I can't remember what he said. He said something like, you know, praise be to Allah or something like this. And he brought God into it. And I was just like, what? It was just the weirdest comment to end it all on. It's just this weird kind of off thing because he didn't really do much as far as his religion goes except praying once before battle. It really wasn't a movie about him and his religion and his journey to explore that. And then all of a sudden at the end, it was like, oh, here you go. Remember that scene where I prayed? Here's a little bit more religion for you. And I was like, what? It's just another one of those cases where the schizophrenia of this movie just screams recut, butchered, like everything that we talk about Justice League, where it's like, oh, I can tell that scene was Zack Snyder. I can tell that scene was Josh Whedon. Oh, okay, this is where Josh Whedon tried to put it, Wonder Woman's butt into this scene, and you can see that in this movie where there's this really strange, like Cody said, there's something not meshing right.
At the end of the movie, would you still recommend people watch this?
Absolutely, 100%. It is a fun, silly, goofy, popcorn, blood and guts, sword and sorcery, fun little romp to watch. If you're looking for something deep, look elsewhere. I mean, this thing got nominated for 2 awards, one of which was from like the Association of Associated Makeup Artists. And it won like hairdressers. And it was best period hairdressing in a movie. That was one of its awards. So it's not going to be on it's not going to be on anybody's Billboard 100, but it's just a fun, goofy movie that's pretty harmless. Just go watch it and see some blood, guts, and gore.
Cody, would
Oh,
you recommend it?
100%. I love this movie.
I would also recommend it. I think that, yeah, if you like movies like The Last Samurai, just a man out of his element, trapped somewhere he doesn't want to be. And really, at the end of the day, he goes back on the boat and it's like nothing happened to him. He has a couple of scratches on his face, but he's still Antonio Banderas.
Like this movie is kind of in the same category for me, anyways, as things like Waterworld and Highlander. It's one of those fun movies that I always pull out every once in a while, rewatch it when I just want to tune out and be entertained for a few seconds, and I'm not really looking for any depth. I mean, it's not Highlander, because Highlander's got a lot of stuff that this movie doesn't. So let's not go crazy, but it's in that same kind of section of my DVDs that there's no dust on these discs because I watch them every once.
Yeah, if I bought this movie, I would probably stick it beside my copy of The Postman.
Exactly. Just another perfect example of that type of a movie. Yes, The Postman.
So now it's time that we move on to our rankings. Martin, you have no top 10. You don't even have a top 1. So where does this fall on your own personal ranking?
Well, if I'm judging it out of movies that I've reviewed with you two fellows, it's going to have to be number 1 because I haven't reviewed any other ones. But in my little collection of, like we said, kind of genre type goofy movies like Postman and stuff like this, I'm putting this in about position 5 of that fictitious list that you guys don't know about.
This movie's gonna be my new number 3.
Damn,
Yeah,
that's high.
I like this movie.
Good pick, Martin. Now, for myself, I really enjoyed this movie. I know I'm going to put this. This will be my new number 4. So that comes right under Far Cry and right above Surviving the Game. I fucking loved it. And I think everyone should just watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
You put this above Far Cry?
Under Far Cry.
Sorry,
Far
you put
Cry
this under Far Cry?
Yeah.
You are aware that this is a stunningly effective epic, the best since Braveheart, according to CBS Radio.
Far Cry is Uwe Boll's best movie to date.
That's like saying that, never mind, I'm not going to pick on Uwe Boll.
All right, so we have no listener mail today, so we don't have to get into that. Fuck it, people, write stuff in. I know you're listening. I see the analytics. With that said, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Martin, you are more than welcome to come back to a future episode. Maybe we'll make you watch something horrible. I'm looking at my wall right now, like the Christopher Lambert Druids movie, which I could not even get all the way through.
Well, it was an absolute hoot. So anytime you guys want me on, let me know.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Absolutely. Had a blast. Goodbye, everyone.
As always, you can find us online through our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram, both at A Kind of Garbage. You can also email us at akindofgarbage@gmail.com with any questions or comments you may have. Be sure to check us out at akindofgarbage.com, where you can find links to our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube pages, as well as our Patreon page at patreon.com/akindofgarbage, where you can get access to our private Discord channel and Patreon exclusive podcasts. Thank you again for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time.
So, Adam, I received in the mail at my front door the hardcover A Kind of Magic, Making the Original Highlander book from Jonathan Melville that you and I pre-ordered. When was it? April?
April, yeah.
And it finally showed up. And I got to tell you, not only am I impressed that it got delivered on Thanksgiving, it's physically a lot smaller than I thought it would be. Like, this is about the size of a hardcover nonfiction novel, right? I was thinking it would be more like a coffee table type book.
Is that disappointing? I like small books. I have so many coffee table books, and to know that this is small and it's going to fit in my bookshelf I'm looking at, that's nice, because I have a new rule that if I'm going to put something in my bookshelf, I must remove something. So I'm trying to limit personal possessions on my bookshelf right now.
Yeah, there's a few pages in the middle with pictures, behind the scenes type stuff. I was expecting it to be more like a coffee table book with pictures throughout and more of an encyclopedia encyclopedic look at it as opposed to what looks to me more like an autobiography type book.
From all the reviews I've read, you are not going to be disappointed after reading it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't put a bad review on the cover, but everybody here on the cover is 4 out of 4 stars.
I can't wait to get mine. Mine should be coming in either next week or the week after. It's because I have multiple Amazon pre-orders that are coming all out around the same time, so they're going to hold some of that back and combine it, which isn't bad.
No, that's all right. I mean, I'm a little bit of a glutton and selfish when it comes to it because I'm paying for Prime. I'm like, if I need a watch battery, I just order the $6 worth of watch batteries, have it delivered. I'm probably ruining the environment by having the shipping truck show up with this small little package in a massive box. I should be more considerate, but so yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I was surprised that you also couldn't find this digitally though. Like you can't get it on Kindle, you can't get it on Kobo. So I guess maybe they're trying to get a little bit of sales on the hardcover first before going digital.
Anything for yourself?
No, I bought 2 things online recently, but I'll talk about them once they actually get delivered. But I'm pretty excited about them.
Spoilers.
All right, I'll say what they are. I bought I bought off the Felix comic art website. I bought a Paul Pope sketch. Yeah,
nice.
And then I bought there's a group of artists that I follow on Twitter of these Korean comic artists, and they've referenced a bunch of times an anatomy book that one of them has written for like drawing anatomy that is apparently this like Bible that's like 700 pages. It has like something like 1,300 illustrations in it. It's supposed to be just insane, but it's never been published outside of South Korea. And one of their publishers is going to do a limited run of it in North America, and I was able to get my hands on one of them.
Nice. I remember you telling me
that one I'm
that.
pretty excited for. I've only seen some images through it, and it looks wild. And to think that it's 600 pages long is pretty mind-boggling.
That does sound really cool.
So for myself, I want to talk about a movie that my partner Danielle and I watched. She did not enjoy it. Cody, I know it's one of your favorite movies, but we watched the 1995 or 6 movie, Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, I love that movie.
I have not seen that since VHS.
Oh, that's definitely an episode we're going to have to do.
My only gripe with I have it on DVD, and my DVD version of it is full screen, so I was just like, no, when did I buy this? Was it like 2000, 2001, like at the early stages of DVD? But one thing I really want to do, and I might make it a like project that I do and never finish, is I want to take Johnny Mnemonic and Surviving the Game and cut both of them into one movie.
How?
Because Ice-T is in both those movies, as you know, and he has the same dreadlocks. And I'm pretty sure I can splice these movies. Yeah, it's the same. I'm pretty sure I can splice these movies together and make it coherent enough for it to be like a little mini movie.
Okay.